everyone to today's Meaningful Conversations. My name is Sylvia. I'm the president of NAWMBA Seattle. Today, my co-hosts are Professional Development Director, Kendall Crowdry. Hi, Kendall. Are you online?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, Kendall. Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too.
Another co-host today is my Marketing Director, Lynette Garcia. Lynette.
Hello.
Hi, Lynette.
How are we doing?
We're good. NAWMBA was first founded in 1978 at Wharton School in Pennsylvania, Seattle in 2011. We are dedicated to empowering professionals, especially women and people of color, in order to propel more leadership positions in today's corporate world. We have awesome programs lined up. Make sure join NAWMBA Seattle as members and subscribe our channels for future updates. Back to today's meaningful conversation, leadership in challenging times with Dariush Khaleghi, or many people prefer to call him DK. I've known DK for many years. DK is an awesome friend and my role model. Now we're in this special time. Today's message from DK is super important. Let's get started and please welcome DK. Hi,
Thank
DK.
you. Hello, and thank you, Sylvia, Lynette, and Kendall. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate you inviting me to this webinar, and I take great pleasure to be a part of your team.
Thank you, DK, for joining us. It is our great honor to have you here today with us. So could you please tell our audience a little bit more about yourself?
So let me just give you a little bit more context. This is not about just being a faculty or being a leadership development. I've seen many different things in my life that has brought me to this point in terms of education, inspiration, empowering other people. And I think that's one of the messages I wanted to share with you. I'm a refugee from Iran, and I also went to military. So then I escaped from Iran, and I was in Pakistan and Spain. And then I ended up coming to the great United States through my cousin. So I'm blessed with many of the tribulations and trials that many people take for granted. But the idea of leadership is that leaders are born out of crisis. And the real leaders today, they have a better understanding of how to work with people, how to manage diversity and inclusion in their organization, how to be fair and create trust in organization. If you have a challenge to do that, this is going to be a time that the manager and leaders are going to be distinguished in terms of what they can accomplish with their people, their team, and organizations. So leadership, at the end of the day, in times of crisis, creates meaning. We are very familiar with the idea that without vision, people will perish, and that's a Bible code. I think leaders are the carriers of their vision. Specifically in time of crisis, if you don't have a vision, how do you create meaning? How do you create meaningful relationships? And how to make that productive dynamics between you and other people and your organization. So they are creating meaning so that people can see where they're going and where the destination is and what their contributions are. Creating meaning is the number one, whether it's through the strategic planning, goal setting, performance management, and feedback. This is how we get to work with people, but they're essential components. So I learned in my life that without trust in crisis, without happy, positive human dynamics can be devastating. At the same time, crisis can help leaders to bring people together, to create a common story, a strategic narrative, have people get engaged to it, contribute to it, and overcome as a result of crisis, get stronger, more inspired, more engaging. So those are the type of I think, opportunities that I learned, and I became a type of a soul that I found education to be a movement. So I can help, that can help people of all colors, all religions, all the background to become their best in terms of providing and contributing to a better society. So I think that's where we are, and that's what I'm doing. My mission is to help educate, inspire, and enable myself and other people so that we can create a better community, of one village for all of us. And I think that's really my story of education, facilitation, training, and leadership. Okay.
Excellent.
Is the answer suffice? You like more? Or?
No, that's fine. That's great. I love it because you have a wide experience in many ways how leadership can be done. And your experience as a person per se is just give you that fire just to say that leaders can get together and with their own experience about tribulations or challenging times, they can come with certain different solutions and keep the people united.
Absolutely. Towards a common goal. That could be my organization, my team, my people, my family. Wherever that story is, you can be a part of it and make that story a path for everybody else to get to that common Sinai or the promised land. And that's really important for people. Otherwise, the chaos and crisis destroy people who lack vision and lack leadership.
No, completely agree. And I think, I think you really kind of already answered what leadership means to you and what kind of its definition for you as far as leadership. And so a follow-on to that is, right now, we are in crisis in many ways, right? Whether it is crisis due to the pandemic, or it is crisis relating to Black Lives Matter and all of the protesting and looting and everything else that is going on. It's chaos right now, right? And everybody looks to the leaders to say, what are you doing, right? Because at this point, it really kind of looks like you're really not leading at all, because we're still in chaos. So there's, I guess, a question around that, right? Your thoughts around that. And then the other side is, due to all of this chaos that we're in, right? We're all working remotely. So as a leader, how are you connecting with your people, right, to keep them productive, keep them motivated, and keep pushing forward?
Excellent. Thank you for the questions. These are very relevant. So we have two questions here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I like to start with number one. Would you just repeat that one more time? I'm taking notes. I want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Yeah. The first question was really around leadership in the amount of chaos that we are in, whether it's the chaos from COVID, the chaos from Black Lives Matter and the protesting, the looting.
Right.
The leadership or lack of leadership that maybe we're seeing today that has to change.
So this is really a beautiful question. A crisis, and I mentioned before that leaders come out of crisis. And we also know that people have these hidden capabilities that show up in crisis. A lot of times they don't really realize they have this. But after they go through this crisis, they come alive. They recognize, well, I didn't know that I could take that type of action or behavior under this very specific circumstances. So leadership not only sees the future in some ways or creates meaning, but also is a firm believer that everybody in organization has hidden capacity, or the latent capability can be developed and sort of word revealing that like an onion one by one to figure out that people actually have more than they believe they have. If you look at our political system today, and if you look at the type of leadership we are experiencing political leadership during crisis, you see the rise of autocratic leadership, because a lot of that is a great example of when people are scared, they need a force. They need somebody to help them, because the collective psyches in some ways in crisis, projecting some of the fears and anxieties out there, which is the leverage that a lot of leaders use to create a narrative that people can sign up to. At the end of the day, if you look at what's happening, there are what we are experiencing is called tribal leadership. So a leader you cannot be a tribal leader and a national leader. It is as if saying that I am in this class, I teach 40 students, but I'm just gonna pay attention to the Iranians and be a great teacher for the Iranians or for African Americans or for the Caucasian. The answer is that is misinformed, because my job or my calling is to make sure that everybody achieves that best self that bring to work. And that really means that I have to include inclusion, learning, working together, they're all become. Otherwise, what you have in leadership is division. And then division, my sense of what's happening in a divided society, there's no, the words can destroy us outside in, but we can truly rot inside out. And I think we have to make a decision that this is one America, for instance, that this is a culture of a diverse population, rich population, and it's really challenging to see that these are divided. That is dividing America, which makes us very vulnerable to every other forces that can come from outside. So it is important for us to say, when I'm in a class or when I'm in group, that I actually spend time to make sure I understand the needs of all groups, allow participation from all groups, and hear their voice and make sure that that is a part of the whatever platform I'm using. So I think that's the danger that we are rotting from inside out because of the division. It's like a simple having some conflict in mind. In fact, when they did some interesting thing is that when the brain loses the connection between two hemispheres for surgeries or other reasons, could see that actually the left and right have two different personalities, two different, they have even different religions. So that's a divided mind, can never come up to integrate as a reality that they can work with. That is, I think, the biggest deficit I see in political day to day. Either rising to become an autocrat dictator because people are afraid, and to divide a country into and make us vulnerable for within forces, and also outside forces are out there to exploit that division. So that is, for me, it's very important that the real power is in unity. The more power is to inclusion and making sure that the needs of all groups are met in terms of their participation in the process. So that's the role of the leader that I see. No longer we're going to have leaders. Leaders are going to be a part of process of integration of vision, mission, values, and inclusion to make sure that we together we can achieve whatever the story or the narrative is that drives that movement. So that's why I call education as a movement towards that united front, towards that goal that makes everyone prosper, not just a group of people. There will never be leadership in a divided world, because what it creates is opportunity for fragmented leadership in all other components that they're not aligned with the tribal leader. So that would be something that when you talk about it, that would be my position on this. And I use psychology, I use leadership management. I mean, constantly look at what can happen and predict some of the ways that leadership can help or rise or emerge. That's why we call leaders emerge. And that's really important for us to recognize. You can emerge only on the premise and platforms that creates more unity.
So DK, you're currently teaching at the University of Washington Business School. What are you trying to tell your students, especially in the business school, and how you would like to convey what you just said to your current business students?
Very beautiful, very beautiful. A lot of business schools, we learn how to work smart, and in some of the processes, the quantity approach is better than the qualitative life of the employee and organization. Now, I'm not saying that we are not doing this, but there's been less emphasis in terms of what's your impact in the community. So as business school, we create corporation entrepreneurs, we do a lot of work. So what I want my students to know that they are more than what culturally has been programmed in there, that just making money, but working for an organization that works against the social values or sustainability, that they need to re-examine. I ask my students to think, reflect before taking action, and assess the result of their work. In a lot of universities are, in a way, it's a production line for MBAs, for people who have skills that can do marketing cross functions. But one component that's missing is the factor that is missing is the factor that some of these decisions can have significant adverse impact on people. And again, I'm not going to go to look at, we can drive downtown, we can go places and see how different neighborhoods and different group of people have been afflicted with poverty, and part of it has to do the role that we can play. So my students, specifically I have MPA students at Evergreen, which we work on Masters of Public Administration. I like to encourage people to take these skills and become advocates, become change makers, become leaders, whatever capacity they can do, but move this society forward for all of us. Having the skills, education is neutral. You can give neutral to a German doctor to use it to torture. But at the same time, you could be one that uses the same education and knife to do a brain surgery and find mysteries of the brain and help and develop, grow, and cure people. So these are the components that's really important for us to recognize in education. I am not educated. I call myself educated leader. Education is my path to reach people, to empower, inspire, and sort of challenge them to find just more than a degree, to find the path, to find inspiration and take it everywhere else. It's like a candle. I believe it's like a candle. You start a candle, leadership is sort of allowing this flame to basically light other candles, and then you have this collective light that can basically enlighten our path to a prosperity and a better society. I think that's what I do this with a lot of different passion. It's not just the knowledge. Knowledge is great, but if you don't, there's no good action coming, leave it at the library. But if you want to learn here, you got to take stewardship. You got to have agency in terms of your decisions and actions of the future. And that's why we are here. And by the way, I don't tell students what to do. You can do whatever you want using this tool, but do it in a way that you're looking around and seeing the impact of it. And it's not just a financial instrument for you to live on the top of the city and believe that everybody else doesn't deserve it because they didn't work hard. It is that we are one family, and the suffering of other people will impact, like every of my students at MPA program work for not-for-profits, which deal with homelessness, youth, juvenile, our justice system, or they work for government. And they're really taking at the most vulnerable people. So you have to have the heart. Education won't help you. You have to have the heart, the soul, and the spirit, and education to be at your best when you're serving the most vulnerable. That to me called being the agent of change, being a positive influence. And people get excited by that. People get inspired and they ask you, what should I do? How can I do this? And that is a matter of discussion, conversations, and being authentic about what is that you really want to do. And that is, I think, for me has been a reward and a credit of being a humble teacher. Okay.
Awesome. I like the way you just do the metaphor with the candle. I love it. It's just like inspiring just one to another, just sending the light. I love it, that metaphor.
Yeah. Well, and I like too that it's starting to change a dynamic of everything is linear, meaning you're born, you go to, middle school, junior high, high school, and then you go to college, and then you get a job, and then you get married, and then you have kids, and then you retire, and then eventually you die. But the way
what a nice story.
So
very boring. Very boring. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But what you're coming in and really describing is it's not linear. There are so many paths that people can take. It's just about finding what that passion is for you and really going out and pursuing it.
Absolutely. And this is critical. We are products of our culture. So who I am in terms of core self, partly is I am my core beliefs, whatever I have been programmed, and that becomes limitations. Now I learned that when I went to Pakistan, Spain, and United States military, refugee camp, that all of what I knew is out the door. I need to learn new skills, new cultural norms, and basically open my eyes so my perception faculties can better understand, interpret what comes to me in terms of information. And without that, I think that people are limited. I grew up, the reason I said it's boring is that the fact that a life that you just follow the assignments is not a life you lived. You lived somebody else's life, and your soul, those animating power that was born because you were conceived to come to this world, it stays latent and unproductive. So what crisis does, it questions all that. It throws everything in chaos.
Yep.
And if you don't have it yourself, what people have taught you will break you. So I learned that I don't want a job. I want to have a calling. So no, I never have to worry about losing a job because I will not lose my mission. And I will not lose my purpose. And then I can accomplish that anywhere else. And it's really interesting. And then I have mixed students in class, and it's just phenomenal to be able. Evergreen is very contentious sometimes. There's a huge conflict. We have privilege, we have basically the system, we have student together, we have African Americans, and some of the students are very vocal. But if you don't understand some of the things they've been through, and then what society has done to program some of that, not understanding that they are here, and that's really important how to deal with that is amazing. My classes are, students say, it brings the most unity among people, because at the end of the day, we need to work together to overcome what's happening. If you look at what's happening today, by dividing people, you are creating the opportunity for dehumanization. Basically, when you say somebody is less than me, what you're doing, you create an opportunity for discrimination, violence, annihilation. Because as long as you're not equal with me, you are subject to out group treatment, and that could be annihilation. But you can't do that within a community, within a family. We have to really work together, and that's my message. That we got to work together. Throw out those programming that I'm from China or I'm from Iran. You are here, let's become American, and there's only one America. And that is, we have to be open to learn, reprogram ourselves, ask questions, and basically what we assess and evaluate what we believe. This is very limiting belief for me, to believe that women have to come from a culture that women have to be covered and they're less than man, half of a man, or however. So you come to this, if you come to a country and bring that thinking here, you're gonna have a lot of limitation. You're gonna have a lot of resentment, because in this country, constitutionally, women and men have been treated equally. They both have Bill of Rights. So if you're not open, you lose. If you're open, you have an opportunity to integrate, work with people, and help. Like what I'm trying to do with this medium is to work with professional women and say, take more leadership. You have some really good skills that the corporate America needs. Community building, being able to actually bring life to corporation, not just a left brain and logical linear type of a life that people die very gradually in organizations in their silences and their cubes. That's not life. So this is what we want to do. We want to bring everybody and let everybody play. Make work a part of life, not life a part of work.
Kendall, I believe you have one more question for DK.
Actually, I think he answered the majority of mine just as he was talking. I think the only thing that I would circle back to is, how do you get the leadership that is there when we are all working virtual?
Good one.
Looking for what?
Yes.
When we're all virtual.
Yes.
So leadership from a standpoint of, hey, I'm no longer coming to the office, or I'm not doing anything yet. You've still got to lead, and still try to drive some change. And so, right. So how are you kind of doing that and still being able to build the connection and saying, hey, we are all one. We're trying to all come together.
Right.
So that change can truly happen, so that we don't have the discrimination and other stuff that is going on today. But now we're all virtual. So we can't all necessarily be together, or if you are together, then you've got the concern of COVID and, spreading a virus.
Yes.
Right.
So that unity,
true.
right? When we're all in our homes and, Zoom and that stuff.
Right. Excellent question. Again, when we really look at deep inside leadership, I could tell you that it's significant, and it's very important that we recognize leadership is about relationships. And the deeper, the more robust, the more trustful relationship is, distances are not as much as a problem. So let's say I moved, as I mentioned before, I developed this really close, sacred relationship with my students. So I know them, I watch what they do, how they read, how they make progress, and constantly provide feedback. So partly, I think what I learned is that you have to have a very robust relationship, not based on, because corporations mostly have superficial leaders. These are bosses and managers, so that they focus on power and authority, which is limited in virtual world. Because you can't do what I do. The best you can do, figure out what I'm doing. But relationships are commitment. They are engaging. It's like, I still love my family when my son is somewhere else, or I still have friends in Iran. It's all about relationships. And I think if you could create relationship, not just based on you as a leader, but based on the human needs, understanding what other people, specifically during the crisis, they are yearning for. Some clarity, some communication that helps to build that relationship. Without relationship, I think we have a fragmented group. With leadership, you have cohesion. You have an ability that people work as one unit, no matter where they are. I mean, this is if you look, I study cults, I study terrorism, I study that. Some of these leaders you don't even know. Let's see, what is that? Why are they so influential and you're not even there? They've been doing this not on virtual, in a hidden space, but very successfully. What are they doing differently? Now think about the negative impact that they have and think about how they use the leadership process. What are they doing differently? And I think you're going to learn some lessons. First of all, nobody really works for the leader. They work for a mission. Can you recognize that? They work for the mission. And then you look at the leader as a facilitator of other people's success. And then how do you do that? How do you create a vision and break it down to where the vision is actually consumable, meaning that people could see the success is not too far, it's close. And then how do you celebrate small wins? Virtual work, we should call it a virtual community. It's really important for the communities based on a relationship, cohesion, understanding, same narrative, same goal, one vision. And I think if you do that, you may actually benefit from my students. I was concerned about that till I used the same process, but in more of a documented online to see what their needs are, what are their aspirations, how a leader can be a servant in terms of serving other people's goals and align that with the goal of the organization and the vision. I think that's where the leadership happens. And it doesn't matter where you are virtually. If you have great relationship, it should be able to help you to be a better leader. But if it's I think I've seen managers that they want to yell, scream over the phone and ask for more data, big data, small data, performance management and all that stuff. When people are they are in a state of fear, anxiety and panic, everything a leader does can either degrade people's motivation to action, they get them to comply and hide, or if you do well, you can rise them and help them see that these opportunities can be very fruitful in terms of the hidden capabilities they have, because you have one path, one mission, and one vision that serves them, serves you, and serves the organization.
Thank you, DK.
Does that answer or?
Definitely. For me, it was amazing in the sense to see the differences, how, and it's, in fact, I love when you said that it's about relationship, because we're in different places and we can connect, and then we just feel the connection in between, because we are just going towards something that we're, one, interested into, and second, we just align our perspective towards a topic that we're discussing right now. So our relationship that we just met years prior just gave us that point of situation to connect, as you said, that relationships are key in the leadership.
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing I wanted to add, in my background, when we get married, it's a little different. This is really important because it's very simple, but what we call it is that the marriage is an institution. And what it really means that when you bring God to this equation, it's not about you anymore, and it's not about you anymore. It's actually a covenant that you work together to serve humanity and to serve people. So you can't just say that I don't like how you do your hair. I don't like that, because it's a higher level engagement with the institution. So work is the same. We have a relationship. We have a covenant to the goals and mission and vision. And that's really important for us to think about, that crisis is not just about us. There's a higher purpose that we stay with the mission, stay with the goal, and overcome our fears and anxieties and look at it as a way of contributing to something bigger, which we call the covenant, right? We have all religions, we have that, but it's very powerful because I no longer say, honey, you're getting too old and I still feel young, so I'm heading out to meet somebody else. Because if you do that, you're breaking the covenant with the higher power. So you're accountable to I think, the bigger requirements than your little thing of desire to go out there and have a new experience. Because the loss of that relationship with the God and with the Lord is a lot more, I think, intense than just going out and meeting somebody else. So I just want to tell you that if we can have that relationship that is so, people transcend the little thing they worry about, but they stay connected, they still feel great about themselves, about their work, about their calling, and about the organization and the leader they work.
I think, DK, another way to explain this from my perspective and also from my learning, this kind of relationship or the covenant you just mentioned, it's more like a triangle, right?
Absolutely.
Right? We're serving for the bigger purpose at the top. And the relationship between husband and wife, it's a left and right. And you have the common leader or common purpose, common mission. That's the top top of the triangle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very beautiful. Thank you for clarifying. That's called better communication.
Well, it's just from what I learned. And also,
that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I take that credit if you learned something here.
Yes, learn a lot. And Lynette, I believe you have something to share with our audience.
Yes, I have the meaningful quote that we have. It's from Ben, the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, that he says that the leadership is something that you earn, is something that you're chosen for. You can't come in yelling, I'm your leader. If it's happened, it's because the other guys respect you. So right here, we see that, as DK was saying, leadership is about just develop relationships. It's just come across to what we can do for others. Is what we can just be as a servant leader to impact others with what we do in our mission of life. So what do you have to say, DK, about that?
Well, I think that it's one way to, these people who they work with gold, they have a test. They put the metal into fire, into crisis. And through that crisis, the gold shows up. In some ways, whatever it's not a part of the gold, the fire separates. So this is an opportunity for us to see who is the real leader. Some things worked out when I was close, when you yelled at me. But we are working in a world that you're tested by crisis. Your leadership is tested. You better come out gold. And the only way to do that is that you build deep, profound, meaningful relationship, and your work is your calling to help people get inspired and achieve their aspirations. And a part of it, like a part of a garden, that you're the gardener, you help things happen. Have you seen somebody yell at a tree, I want bigger apples? God dang it, why don't you give me some more oranges? It's a very different relationship. It's developmental relationship. It's a trust relationship. You see, when I put my trust in you, I'm vulnerable now. And then because you have differential power, you can have predatory behavior towards him because I'm vulnerable. So yelling at people, it just diminishes their dignity and integrity and will not help, because now people that they are harmed in their psychic is diminished. They have to get back and become whole again. And that's why revenge is sweet, because revenge activates your reward centers of the brain. So So it's really important that you be respectful, that you take the opportunity to lift people, to build better connection relationships. To empower people is to really respect them and respect the gift they are, and be a gardener, help them, provide them with the opportunities, the climate, the context that help them to be their best. When a garden, every apple tree is at their best, the gardener is rich. If every apple is suffering from some sort of deficit, that's not going to be a great year for the gardener. And in some ways, we are the gardeners of human potential and the future. And with that is how we lead successfully.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And I think it too, you're right, it falls into, you've got to have the authenticity, and the people got to feel like you truly care about them. And
absolutely. So this is what I tell you. The way I look at people is this. Maybe it's a little bit odd, but I look at people everybody has a soul. And this soul is in some ways associated with our bodies, and the bodies look different. Our personality is different. Our soul is distinct, but we are still coming from the same source. And in that is that where I see, when I look at you, I see myself. When I look at you, I see myself. But in a different situation and condition, my job would be to do whatever I can to allow more of that to shine. So it's like when we talk about privilege, you cannot disassemble privilege from outside in. You have to do it inside out. What can only happen by examining, working, articulating new visions and building new relationships and helping people individually and professionally together. So that's where I am today. And hopefully I enjoy seeing my students successful, not only in terms of getting a job, but also is that they are the change maker. These folks are going to go and do something great. We should reward of it with ripple effects in the new generation in the future. Future is ours. We are not going to delegate it to anybody else. Leadership is yours. You're not going to delegate it to anybody else. So what type of leader do you want to be? And that's always my question.
DK, very last question. Is there any book or article you would like to recommend our audience to read?
One of the articles that I shared lately with my students was about, it was HBR, Harvard Business Review, about setting people to fail. It was very interesting conversation about the type of a leader you just, the quote was addressing that it's very important that you set people for success and not failure, and then talks about some of the steps and also some of the symptomology and some of the things that we could do to set people for success. We don't think about it. We think that people have to get successful on their own sink or swim. But I think it's really important to say, how do you set this stage, the process, the organization, like the gardener, for success? And I think that's the key that this article was discussing, that I thought was very profound.
Can you say one more time the title of the article?
It was an HBR article that talked about setting people to fail. And that's what a lot of management discourse is about, because the whole idea is that when people perceive that you set them for failure, the noose can get just tighter and tighter as the communication and interaction goes up. Because two things happen that's very important. One is self-fulfilling prophecy, and then the reinforcement on the behaviors that the leader expects from you. So that has consequences, I think, beyond just the work in terms of people's soul dignity, their emotional stage and vulnerability. I think that's really an important piece to that.
Thank you so much for the recommendation, DK.
Sure, my pleasure.
Lynette?
I really appreciate the opportunity. And by the way, if you have, one of the things I was thinking about, you can have open sessions at the end of this and ask people if they want to show up and ask questions. One of the things that happens, a lot of people are scared to ask certain questions from their bosses or from the people around because they feel more vulnerable, specifically in the absence of trust. The brain is really struggling. So it would be another just recommendation for you, in addition to your web seminars and webinars, I really appreciate, is that you could actually leave the mic open and see if there are anybody who wants to ask a specific question: psychology, neuroscience of leadership, organization, management, organizational behavior. At least from my part, I believe an authentic and rich discussion would be helpful. Not that we know the answer, but we can have a dialogue about what is important in this time.
That is
ask
actually
the right question.
That is a very good question. In fact, we're waiting for session 2 with you next time, and that will be Q&A.
I'll be, listen, I am committed to one of the things I learned, and that again, coming from Islamic Iran, is that I want to change the mindset. I want to change the cycle. And I want my daughter to be the president of the United States. I want women in all spheres of life, work. And I want us to just free ourselves of the shackles of beliefs that put some people less than the other people. And though women, for instance, they have demonstrated the political leadership, at least in the recent events, that they are as capable or more capable to run a nation successfully. We got to give them a chance. But it starts for us to believe that we have, we are not the same, but we have equal opportunity to develop ourselves to be who we are supposed to be without all those shackles of cultures, paternalism, and those things that we learn, and keep us in that shackle or chain and limits our contribution to a better world.
Awesome. If you want to connect, guys, our great audience with Dariush Khaleghi, go and click on his LinkedIn, Dariush Khaleghi, all together, and then you can send a message to him and you can open the conversation with this amazing leadership trainer. Also, September is around the corner, and then we have 3 great conversations that we're going to be doing. September 17 with Dr. Albert Chon talking about oral health from the same number, 4 to 4:30. On September 22nd, we have BJ Niles. She was Ultimate Career Leap webinar. She was a speaker, and she will be giving us her wisdom at 3 o'clock. And September 27, Venus Rikoff, it will be about inclusive leadership in action, 4 to 4:30. So we got a pack current events, and also we have this great agenda. Back to you, Sylvia.
Thank you so much. Thank you, DK, again for your awesome information and sharing. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Meaningful Conversations. And more meaningful conversation, like we mentioned, coming up. So stay connected and stay safe, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
And see everyone next time.
Kendall, Lynette, Sylvia, thank you so much.
Thank you, DK. Thank you, DK.
Bye-bye. Thank you.